Hey, yesterday I realized that there's been some games that have come out that in retrospect I realized that I really enjoyed because I keep on thinking about them. Um but I've been playing a lot of Overwatch and Rainbow Six, so I haven't really been in the habit of in Civilization. So I haven't really been in the habit of playing hobbyist games, so it's like when I get out of the habit of it, I don't recognize um I like don't categorize it in my brain the same way. I'm when it's not in my routine. So I don't remember when I played Breach's Murmur, but I've been thinking about it. Um, I haven't played it extensively, uh, but I planned to this morning, and I figured I could record as I did so. So this is the mouse look. Okay, so on the bottom is actually an overhead map of um, us. So if I leave this building that is these wavy shapes, which is the roof of the building I'm in. Okay. See, I appeared to be a tiny black dot. Alright, so there's the building we just left. Now, another thing about this game is that the draw distance is really short, so as I approach it, more of the object comes into the scene. See how the geometry is like, only being rendered when it's a certain distance from me. So you can kind of see how on the top view, it seems to be a labyrinth submerged in sand. This is interesting to me because often I think about uh, really glamorous landscape photos, especially in like travel magazines and such. And I remember that there's two different things that to pay attention to. There's the what it feels like and looks like to look at a landscape or a monument, and what it feels like to actually be on that monument. Because if I see a mountain top, I'm like, oh man, I bet it would be awesome to be up on that mountain top. But often the case is that it's actually more sublime to be looking at the mountain from a distance, from a more mundane perspective, because then you can actually get a perspective on it. One that emphasizes the mass. So here we have a case where we're given both alternatives. We're both in the labyrinth, and we can view the labyrinth from a separate perspective to kind of get a sense of the awesomeness of the larger shape. So at first, when I first played it, I kind of thought about these the overhead as a method of navigation, uh, which is another way to think about it. So I'm actually doing that right now. This could actually make corn maze games good. Just putting that, I guess it's a mini map, isn't it? That's what people call this. I guess there's something to me about a mini map being a fully rendered camera, and it being well, and these shapes in their implementation are particularly good for uh, what I'm getting out of this game. Or what I'm getting out of the mini map. So you can kind of see how that's kind of cool, like, right? So it feels, the architecture feels dynamic in a really, would that be a literal way? I'm not really sure what the literal definition of dynamic is, but it feels like it is active. I've basically been like blossomed upon right here. Even though in knowing that these are, um, you know, for for the most part they are static shapes. Like there's the entire like existential tree falling in the woods thing, but these are existing shapes before I come about them. I don't believe this game is procedurally generated. So now we're just walking off this way. Yeah, the ground's got shape, so as I move, the drawing distance kind of provides me a little bit of a wavingness. I might be off the map here. It's worth noting that the game does not have sound. I assume that an appropriate soundtrack would be too much of an undertaking for this project in its scope. Would be nice if it existed. There's a jump. I've gone off of everything here. There's a little bit of a gradient. I don't know if you'll be able to see it because the quality I'm going to upload. But on the mini-map, you can kind of see like I'm walking across shades. Okay, we're back here. I'm just going to enjoy it until I have something to say. It appears that that little cross shade pattern makes me think that the shader on the ground is or the texture on the ground is like a different format than what it was made for. Because sometimes I get that in Unity when I'm importing a texture. I choose, I can't remember the names of them, but like different bits or something like that, and they'll give you like kind of these little crosses with gradients on their vertices. I think the composition of the game really works out well. Like, it appears to be a sketchbook page outlined with possibly a screenshot, and then the main screen and the mini map on top. It works for me. The framiness, I don't know. It's like like it does what a frame does. I do find it more interesting when I am in the area where the architecture is. There's a lot more structures in the game that I've seen in the past. It appears that I've reached the end of the level. Is that right? No. I might even restart so I can go back to it. Let's see. Okay, so we went labyrinth way last time. Oh, I never really thought about it, but there's an orientation to these particles, these pink particles. So let's see if they lead us somewhere. Maybe this was inspired by Journey. Okay, So this is definitely playing with the draw distance, knowing that the draw distance is there. Um, how how can a shape provide an interesting, you know, behavior? See how the minimap kind of adds to the composition in in these situations? It it becomes something that's, not exclusively for navigational purposes. Oh, I found the structure earlier. This is the one I was actually, when I first realized that I wanted to play this game again, I came in and found the structure and became really fascinated with it. I actually spent, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes in it, exploring it. Uh, I really like the dirty quartz texture, and then also it's these repeating sections, right? Um, Stacked, uh, which makes me wonder how the model was made. Um, because because the few ways I've made models, I would not end up with this. Uh, because there are normals on the insides and the outsides, but yet they are here. So they all have collisions. Am I stuck? No. All these walls have collision, but they're 2D though, and uh, they all have normals on both sides, meaning that they don't turn invisible on the other side. Now the drawing distance has a invisibility um, side effect, as you can see, so it kind of makes it kaleidoscopic because the lines are so straight, and it has substantial depth, width, and height. You get I guess a kaleidoscopic kind of interesting thing from the draw distance being so limited. So I think it's just a really interesting shape, this one here. I find myself exploring it a lot. I got to the top of it at one point. It's always a nice objective to get to the top of things. You know, now that I think about it, I really identify a lot more with the objective of getting to the top of things, more than amassing the most wealth, which is actually kind of interesting to me, because both of those things are somewhat arbitrary. And I guess getting to the top of things is not intrinsically competitive, whereas I think accruing the most wealth is. But they seem kind of similar. And when I identify with them, either not so much. So that's always exciting, because when I find two similar things that I can compare, that I have different opinions on, I can triangulate a very idiosyncratic aspect of my perspective on things, which is what I do all day. So let's see. So I've been focusing on the first person view, and now that I have a little bit of height, not much. I can see the land down there. I think I'm just on the first level. now that I'm looking at the mini-map portion, I'm realizing, like, I'm enjoying the chord structure in a different way. The angularness, angu, the fact that everything's at an angle adds a lot to this exploration. It's kind of like how a large ship is interesting in its compartments and such, but if you put it on land and it's a little bit leaned to the side, it becomes this like walking on the ceiling kind of deal. I wonder if I can. No, I don't know if I can get up there, but I bet I can. Well, not if I fall. Okay, let's move on. This is another interesting aspect of it, that it's got this the yellowishness applied to this side of the texture. It's an interesting object. I think it's a really interesting object. I enjoy how the fact that everything is at an angle kind of makes the kaleidoscopic effect less symmetrical. So it becomes much harder to manage fully symmetrical shapes. And again, the mini-map, when doing this, really adds to the composition. I find myself kind of looking at it in my bottom periphery and really enjoying what it's doing with the rest of it. It's a neat game. I'm jumping hills now. I really enjoy exploring shapes. Like, that's one of the big appeals to me of Riley James Thomas's games. The idea of, like, climbing across these large 3D models and simultaneously just, like, kind of exploring them and then realizing that they're gigantic versions of things that of smaller size in real life, that representations. That's not all of Riley James Thomas's games, but that's one of the things that I really appreciate about multiple games by Riley. This is not a Riley James Thomas game. I don't know how to pronounce this person's account name. Gervuada, I believe. Gervudian? Yeah, I don't know. Okay, it looks like I've lost it again. I might as well leave a little bit of the architecture for you to explore on your own. I enjoyed that.